So have you ever been there? You're pouring all this time, all this effort, maybe even money into a goal. You're chasing a title, a revenue number, or maybe just a feeling of, I don't know, consistent happiness. You're working so incredibly hard, planning everything, sacrificing sleep, and yet you just feel stuck, anxious even. Like you're on a treadmill that's just speeding up and up, but you're not actually moving forward.
Yeah, that feeling, that's a really crucial signal. Most of us, we live our lives basically demanding a specific outcome from the world. We want the money, the recognition, the success. And we struggle, I think, precisely because we're fighting a process we haven't actually designed properly.
And that really gets to the core idea of this deep dive. It's all rooted in this really powerful framework from Reuben Juma Onunga. It's almost like an engineering blueprint for life.
Exactly. And his background as a professional engineer is so key here. His insight is so structured. He says outcomes are not accidents. They are consequences. So if you're consistently demanding results and not seeing them, the problem is almost never a lack of effort. It's a misplaced focus. We spend so much energy arguing with the outcome, the disappointing result, and, almost no energy investing in the quiet internal inputs that actually produce the outcome in the first place.
Okay, so let's unpack that for you. Our mission today is to really explore how to shift from that desperate feeling of forcing results to the, I guess, strategic certainty of building them wisely.
Building them. I like
It
it.
means totally reorienting your priorities.
Yeah.
We're going to help you run a kind of hard audit on what you're feeding your life daily, your mind, your habits, your skills, even your character.
Yeah.
Because those unseen inputs, they're literally creating your future right now, whether you realize it or not.
You have to move upstream, from the symptom all the way back to the cause.
Okay, so let's start with the trap itself. Why do we get so hung up on the visible metrics? I mean, everything in modern culture, it feels like it's designed to push us toward this obsession with outcomes.
It really is.
Success is measured by speed, by visibility, by social media metrics, titles. It's all about who can show the most impressive result in the shortest amount of time. There's just this constant pressure to, show something quickly.
And that pressure, that need for an immediate performance, it creates what the author calls fragile structures.
Yeah.
These are things that look really impressive when, the market is good or the spotlight is on, but they lack the internal systems to actually sustain themselves. And this fixation, it comes with three really steep hidden costs.
Let's break those down. So the first one is just impatience.
Yes. Impatience. When the outcome is the only thing we're focused on, we demand instant returns. We need to see the stock price go up. We need to see the body transformation. We need the recognition now. But real progress in any meaningful field, it involves a huge period of incubation, of quiet work. And when results inevitably delay, and that delay is usually a sign that a complex system is taking root, we get frustrated. We abandon the process right before the breakthrough happens.
Right.
The source material reminds us of that scriptural warning: hope deferred makes the heart sick. You can translate that for today, When your entire emotional well-being is tied to a specific date on a calendar, you just deplete yourself during that necessary waiting period. You burn out waiting for a harvest that still needs time to grow underground.
That is so true. If you define success only as what's visible right now, then any period of quiet, disciplined, even messy work, it feels exactly like failure. And when you're that desperate for the visible win, that leads right to the second pitfall.
Yeah.
Shortcuts.
Absolutely. When the outcome becomes the sacred goal, your integrity starts to feel negotiable. You start to cut corners, skip the due diligence, maybe you exaggerate progress in a meeting, or you prioritize this crazy, unsustainable growth just to hit a number for the quarter.
Can you give us a concrete example of one of those fragile structures that comes from a shortcut?
Sure. Think of a business that's chasing rapid expansion, so they keep skipping proper training for new hires. Or they neglect to invest in their quality control systems. They might get a viral moment, maybe a great quarterly report by running on pure hustle and quick fixes. But the second any real pressure is applied, a supply chain issue, a new regulation, a key person resigns, that whole structure just collapses because the foundation was never built for scale. They cared more about the external look than the internal architecture.
And the third cost, which feels like the most effective way to just avoid responsibility,
Right.
is misdiagnosis.
Yes. When those fragile structures fail or the outcomes are disappointing, our natural defense is to look outward. We blame the economy. We blame the competitors, the market, the universe.
But hold on. I mean, if I'm working hard and I'm still failing, those external factors are real obstacles.
Yeah.
How does the author suggest we look inward when the external pressures feel so overwhelming?
It's not about denying reality. It's about defining what you can actually control. The problem with misdiagnosis is it makes you look at your goals instead of the years of your system. You start adjusting your targets, oh, I'll aim for less, instead of looking inward at the neglected causes, your daily inputs. Look, you can't control the weather, but you can control the quality of the seed you plant and the design of your irrigation system. Blaming the world might feel good for a minute, but it guarantees the problem will happen again.
And the result of all this is what he calls tension without traction.
Hmm.
You're stressed, you're urgent, you're always pushing, but you're not moving forward in a sustainable way. So the solution is to stop arguing with the outcomes and start aligning yourself with the causes.
And this brings us to the foundational law of this whole framework. Life is a structured system. It's ordered. It's governed by these inviolable principles. Every single result you experience in finance, health, relationships, whatever, is just the final expression of that system at work. And systems, well, they don't argue with you. They don't negotiate. They just produce what they're designed to produce.
I find that so clarifying, that systems don't negotiate. It removes all the emotional drama. But here's my pushback. Doesn't that risk making us, I don't know, robotic? Just executing a process without passion?
Not at all, because the wisdom is in designing the right system based on your purpose, not in just blindly following a bad one. The core law here is that analogy from nature. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. That principle doesn't care about your impatience. It doesn't care about your mood or your intentions. It just responds faithfully to the seed you planted. Your anxiety doesn't speed up the harvest by a single second. It only increases your own suffering while you wait.
So the common mistake then is addressing the symptoms, right? We're looking for a jolt of motivation, but what we really need is structure and clarity and competence. We want the feeling of the harvest, but we haven't committed to the inputs of planting.
Precisely. Hard work inside a broken system just produces painful, limited results. The wisdom is in doing things correctly, designing the system properly, not just doing things aggressively.
Okay, so if life is a system, then we have to talk about the master input, the first domino, and that's attention. Focus determines the quality of everything else. And this is where most of us fail right out of the gate. You can put in 8 scattered, distracted hours of work, and the output is nothing compared to 1 hour of deep, sustained focus.
Attention is the invisible yet. It's the entirely decisive input. Where your attention goes, your energy flows, and that's where growth occurs. Attention is formative. It actually sculpts your inner world. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius observed it centuries ago. The soul takes on the color of its thoughts. Think about what that means practically. What you repeatedly look at, what you worry about, what you dwell on, that becomes the trajectory you move toward. If you spend all your attention following market volatility every single minute, your entire emotional system takes on the color of anxiety and fluctuation. Your internal operating system becomes unstable, even if your actual investment strategy is sound on paper.
And in our world, everything is designed to shatter that sustained attention. Notifications, social media comparisons, constant manufactured crises. They all create this culture of divided focus. We feel incredibly busy because we're reacting all day, but we're fundamentally ineffective because sustained attention is what's required for deep work, for real growth. So the challenge for you, the listener, is to do a serious audit. What is occupying your attention every day? Is it distraction and comparison, or is it quiet, consistent work on your craft?
And here we have to distinguish between analysis and just rumination. The material points out that unchecked worry feels productive. We tell ourselves we're solving the problem by obsessing over it. But worry is unproductive attention. It's attention just cycling on itself with no conclusion.
So how do you draw that line? How do you tell the difference between solving a problem with focused thought and just feeding anxiety?
The output test is simple. Productive analysis leads to an action plan or a decision. Or sometimes it leads to acceptance and peace about what you can't control. Rumination only leads to more anxiety. If your focused thought hasn't produced a clear next step, you're not analyzing anymore. You're just feeding the system the input of worry. Growth needs sustained, focused attention, not just constant input.
Okay, so if sustained attention is that master input, what are the most tangible things that come out of it? That has to be our daily habits.
Right. Moving from the abstract to the tangible, we get to daily habits. Onunga calls habits the architecture of outcomes. We mistakenly think our lives are shaped by, 3 or 4 big, dramatic decisions. But in reality, most of your life is shaped by tiny choices repeated quietly, thousands and thousands of times. This is where compounding power really takes over. The principle is clear. Whoever is faithful in little will be faithful in much. Little is the language of daily habits. Showing up for 30 minutes, making one more call, reading 5 pages. Much is the language of the harvest, which is just the inevitable multiplier of that small input over time.
And the huge strategic advantage of having fixed habits is that they remove your reliance on motivation, which is always fluctuating. Consistency beats intensity because discipline is stable. When the habit is fixed, your system just carries you forward. It ensures you make progress even on the days you feel completely uninspired.
That's the external architecture, but we can't stop there. A disciplined outer life can't compensate for a neglected inner life. So let's talk about the invisible work, the mental and emotional input.
The inner blueprint is everything. If you're building a skyscraper, the foundation has to be perfect. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Thought becomes the blueprint for your behavior. If that blueprint is saturated with resentment or self-doubt or catastrophic thinking, then the external structure you're trying to build, your schedule, your new business, it's going to be inherently unstable.
This is why emotional hygiene is so critical. Peace, clarity, wisdom. These are cultivated things. They don't just happen to you. You have to intentionally feed your inner life with focused thought, constructive self-talk, quiet reflection. You have to build mental resilience. If you feed the inner system noise and chaos and doubt, you can expect the output to be anxiety and volatility. It doesn't matter how hard you're working on the outside.
Okay, next, let's address the myth of luck, which is really about skill and learning and preparation.
Yeah.
We love to attribute things to luck because it lets us off the hook, doesn't it?
It does. But Seneca had the better definition. He said, luck is simply what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You will inevitably be presented with opportunities, a major contract, a promotion, a moment of visibility. But if you haven't put in the hours, that opportunity will just pass you by. Skill isn't developed in moments of urgency or applause. It's forged in what the framework calls seasons of obscurity. Think of the writer working on a manuscript for 3 years before anyone hears about it, or the coder learning a new language without a visible project to show for it. That quiet, focused time is where competence is created, and preparation is what reduces anxiety, because competence brings confidence. When you know you're ready, you actually welcome the moment of evaluation instead of fearing it.
And finally, we get to the input that sustains all the other output, character and integrity. We've established that talent and skill can open doors maybe faster now than ever before, but only integrity keeps those doors open for the long haul.
Character is the ultimate multiplier, or it's the definitive limiter of your success. If success is a high-rise building, character is the foundation and the quality of the steel. Talent might get you into that spectacular corner office, but if your character is weak, your growth will outpace your maturity, and the success itself becomes a liability.
Right, because success, especially public success, it just amplifies everything. It doesn't fix your flaws. It exposes them to a wider audience.
Precisely. And integrity isn't something you claim in public. It's something you practice daily in those quiet inputs. It's choosing honesty when a little exaggeration is tempting. It's choosing consistency when a shortcut is available. If you lack character, your system is designed to eventually fail. The harvest isn't just growth, it's sustained, ethical, stable growth.
All of this disciplined input, it naturally leads to the emotional discipline of waiting, faith, and trusting the process. This is where most people quit, isn't it? Because they can't handle the lack of immediate feedback.
This is the critical emotional discipline. Anxiety comes from trying to manage results, which are outside our control, instead of managing inputs, which we fully control. Faith is what shifts the focus from controlling the timing of the outcome to honoring the process of the input. The source material defines this as disciplined obedience carried out without constant negotiation for outcomes. It means you show up and you plant the seed today, even though you know you won't see the harvest for months. We have to constantly remind ourselves that delay is often formation. If your effort is aligned with purpose and correct principles, you can trust that it never goes to waste, even if the feedback is agonizingly slow.
And that trust, it underpins the final practical truth. Consistency beats intensity. Intensity is dramatic. It relies on adrenaline and motivation, and it often collapses when that high fades. But consistency is quiet, it's stable, and it survives those uninspired days because it's baked into your routine. It's non-negotiable. Life just responds far more faithfully to what is sustained than to what is dramatic. If you want sustainable, inevitable output, you need stable, reliable input. You don't need a miracle. You just need momentum.
And that stability and momentum lead us to the inevitable conclusion. When all the right inputs, focused attention, consistent habits, developed skills, strong character, and trust in the process are consistently applied, The output stops being a struggle you have to push for, it just becomes a natural consequence. The final assurance from this framework is so powerful. The harvest is guaranteed if we do not give up. Only the timing may vary. When the input is fixed and applied faithfully, the output follows. Quietly, faithfully, and inevitably.
That is such a fundamental reordering of priorities, moving from desperately chasing some external validation to strategically cultivating your internal discipline. And it's just fascinating that this entire philosophy comes from a professional engineer, Reuben Juma Onunga. His background forces this whole approach to be grounded in structured, practical systems thinking. We need to stop asking, why am I not seeing results? And start rigorously auditing the system by asking, what quality of input am I feeding it daily?
Absolutely. And as you mull over this new framework, that small, correct choices repeated quietly are the architecture of your outcomes, consider this final, practical question to begin your redesign. What is the smallest, simplest, correct input in your attention, your habits, or your inner life that you can deliberately choose to fix or apply starting today, trusting that time, the ultimate multiplier, will inevitably increase its effect?